He was only 21, no longer a child, yet not yet a man of grey counsel. His youth was not a burden, it was a storm. In its energy lay ambition, and in its ambition, direction. Mehmed carried the fire of a prophet's promise and the discipline of a seasoned sovereign. He did not rush to war, he laid chess pieces. His first move was diplomatic silence. He sent peace signals to Hungary. He secured his flanks in the Balkans. Every possible distraction was neutralized or delayed. None would interfere when he struck. Then came the fortress, Rumeli Hisara, built in under 4 months on the narrowest point of the Bosphorus, directly across from Anadolu Hisara. It was not just a military post. It was a declaration. This strait belongs to the Ottomans now. To dominate the sea, Mehmed ordered the construction of a fleet, not merely to pressure the city from water, but to sever its artery, the Golden Horn. A massive iron chain protected the inlet, but Mehmed was already imagining ways around it. And then, the cannons. Orban, a Hungarian engineer, came to Constantinople offering his services. The Byzantines could not afford him. Mehmed could. He commissioned a bombard so vast it required hundreds of oxen to move and hours to cool between shots. Its voice would echo like divine thunder across land and sea. But Mehmed's true genius lay not in steel alone. He kept his court divided, his enemies guessing, and his allies comfortable. He struck quiet agreements with Genoese merchants in Galata, whispered promises to Christian enclaves, and sowed confusion through planted misinformation. Every step, every silence was calculated. At the center of his spiritual arsenal stood Akshemseddin, mystic, scholar, and mirror to Mehmed's soul. While the Sultan forged cannon, Akshemseddin forged resolve. He preached discipline and destiny, assuring the army and the Sultan alike that prophecy was not metaphor, it was imminent. The strategy was now complete. Constantinople would be struck by land and sea, surrounded, isolated, and broken from within. Not just taken, but claimed. And the world would watch the beginning of an empire on the ruins of another. April 6th, 1453. With the rising sun came the thunder of cannons and a siege that would shake the very foundations of two worlds. The Ottomans encircled Constantinople with an army of over 80,000. Janissaries, Sipahis, engineers, sappers, and supply trains stretching for miles. They faced a crumbling empire guarded by barely 7,000 defenders, Byzantines, Genoese mercenaries, and civilian volunteers, led by Emperor Constantine XV and Giovanni Giustiniani. From the start, Mehmed's assault was relentless. The massive bombard cannons shattered the silence, hurling stone balls the size of boulders. For days, then weeks, the city's legendary Theodosian walls trembled, but the defenders proved defiant. Night after night, they climbed the rubble to reinforce breaches by torchlight. Stones, earth, and sweat holding back steel. Each breach was met with blood. Ottoman sappers tried to tunnel beneath the walls, but Greek counterminers intercepted them. Underground, battles were fought in pitch darkness. Shovels turned to swords, picks to daggers. More than once, tunnels collapsed, burying both sides. The Ottomans attempted frontal assaults, waves of irregular infantry thrown at the gates. They were repelled with arrows, boiling oil, and rocks. The Janissaries watched in silence, knowing their time would come only when the walls had bled enough. Inside the city, the mood was desperate yet dignified. Priests walked the streets singing hymns, leading processions with icons. Citizens prayed in Hagia Sophia. Constantine refused to flee. "I will not abandon my people," he declared. "To live or to die, we do so together." Then a miracle turned into terror. In one of the boldest maneuvers in siege history, Mehmed's men greased timbers and rolled ships overland, around Galata and into the Golden Horn. The Byzantines awoke to Ottoman sails inside their inner harbour. Naval superiority was gone. Giustiniani attempted a counterattack with fire ships, but the wind turned and the ships burned prematurely. In response, the Byzantines built floating barricades. Small skirmishes broke out on the waters. Ottoman archers rained arrows from their decks. Greek fire was launched in return. Every side bled, but Constantinople was now choking, its lifeline cut from within. Still, the Ottomans could not break through. They tried psychological warfare, firing messages into the city offering mercy for surrender. Constantine tore them down. He sent none back. Weeks passed. Supplies dwindled. Morale cracked. A lunar eclipse cast dread upon the city. Priests whispered omens of doom. Yet Constantine held firm. So did Giustiniani, despite his wounds. So did the women, children, and monks who manned the walls when soldiers collapsed. Then, on May 28th, as dusk fell, all grew quiet. Constantine ordered a final liturgy in Hagia Sophia. Soldiers confessed. The emperor knelt beside nobles and beggars alike, taking communion in silence. It would be their last night. Before dawn on May 29th, Mehmed launched his final assault. First came the Bashi bazooks, wild and poorly trained, meant to exhaust the defenders. They were slaughtered. Then came the Anatolian infantry, disciplined but unrelenting. They fought tooth and nail at breaches already crumbling. Finally came the Janissaries, silent, armoured and ruthless. At the Kirkoporta gate, a misstep. A gate left partially open became a fatal crack. The Janissaries surged in. Giustiniani was gravely wounded. Chaos broke the Byzantine lines. Constantine is said to have cast aside his purple and charged the invaders. His body was never found. In the chaos of that final charge, one moment burned itself into Ottoman legend. A soldier named Ulubatlı Hasan, carrying the Ottoman flag, scaled the shattered walls under a hail of arrows. Struck again and again, he pressed forward. Wounded fatally, he drove the banner into the ramparts before falling. His blood marked the stone. His standard marked the conquest. He became a symbol, not just of bravery, but of belief, immortalized in the memory of an empire. As his banner flew above one of the main towers, a wave of fury and euphoria swept through the Ottoman lines. Soldiers, seeing the flag raised high through smoke and chaos, surged toward that breach with renewed ferocity. What had seemed an endless wall now looked like destiny's doorway. The whole army tore into the city's last defenses, driven by the image of one man's sacrifice blazing above them. By mid-morning, the city was overrun. Mehmed entered in silence. He forbade looting of key churches. He rode to Hagia Sophia, now echoing with fear and prayer, and performed 2 rakats of gratitude. The city of Constantine had fallen. From its ashes, the empire of the Ottomans was born, and the world, for better or worse, would never be the same. The dust had not yet settled when a new era began. As Mehmed stood beneath the dome of Hagia Sophia, now converted into a mosque, the enormity of what had occurred echoed around the world. The last remnant of the Roman Empire was gone. A city that had withstood over 1,000 years of siege and ambition had finally fallen, not by slow decay, but by sword and strategy. But what came next was not ruin. It was rebirth. Mehmed, now known as Fatih, the conqueror, declared Constantinople the capital of the Ottoman Empire. He did not raise the city, he revived it. He encouraged migration from across the empire. Churches became mosques, yes, but others were preserved. Markets reopened. Streets buzzed with builders, merchants, and scholars. Within months, the city began to breathe again. He invited Orthodox clergy to remain, appointing a new patriarch to ensure continuity of faith under Islamic rule. The conquest was political, but it was also cultural, philosophical, and imperial. He envisioned not merely a Muslim capital, but a global one where East and West converged. In Europe, the shockwaves were immediate. The fall of Constantinople marked not just the end of Byzantium, but the end of an age. Renaissance scholars, having fled the East, carried with them texts, language, and ideas that would ignite intellectual revolutions in Italy, France, and beyond. For Christendom, the loss was existential. The Pope called for renewed crusades, though none would reach the city again. Walls were raised across Christendom, not just of stone, but of fear. The Ottomans were no longer a rising threat. They were the empire to contend with. For the Islamic world, Mehmed's conquest was seen as the fulfillment of divine prophecy. He was hailed not only as a ruler, but as a restorer of Islamic destiny. From the mosques of Cairo to the bazaars of Samarkand, the name Istanbul began to replace Constantinople in prayers and maps. And yet, one consequence ran deeper than empire or city: legitimacy. For decades, rival Turkic and Mongol dynasties looked down on the Ottomans. Despite their victories, Ottoman sultans were often dismissed as upstarts, sons of concubines, born outside the noble lineages that anchored tradition in the Islamic and steppe worlds. Their rise, while undeniable, was whispered about with skepticism in distant courts. But the conquest of Constantinople silenced all that. In one act, Mehmed did what no sultan, khan, or caliph had done. He took the queen of cities. He fulfilled prophecy. He became Sultan of Sultans. And the stain of half-born lineage, so often used to belittle his dynasty, vanished in the light of victory. From that moment forward, no other Turkic or Islamic dynasty could rival the stature of the Ottomans. The conquest crowned them not just with territory, but with authority, both spiritual and imperial. The House of Osman emerged as the unchallenged heir to the legacy of Rome and the mission of Islam. The old scorn was gone. Supremacy was no longer debated. It was sealed in stone and blood. And in the centuries that followed, the city would grow into an imperial jewel, the heart of an empire spanning 3 continents. The conquest did not end a story. It began a new one told in marble and minaret, in poetry and politics, in shadow and splendor. And it all began with a boy who dreamed of an ancient city and believed he was born to claim it.